For 6 seasons, Emergency was must-watch television, but the reruns never told you this. One actor became the voice behind a horror classic. Another was wrongly declared dead online. One secretly wrote a song every American knows. One was the son of a Hollywood icon. And one man is still here at 92, having outlived almost everyone. But the story at number 4 is the one that shocked me the most. Number 13, Art Ballinger, Battalion Chief Conrad. One actor from Emergency lived to the remarkable age of 96, longer than almost anyone else you're about to meet. And here's the strange part, you'd know his voice in a heartbeat, but most fans never even knew his name. Art Ballinger started as a radio announcer. That crisp, official, "this is important now" sound.
All right, now I'm not gonna hurt you. Okay, easy does it, sweetheart. And I go.
Squad 51. Man injured at the junkyard.
There.
And one man kept hiring that voice over and over. A producer named Jack Webb. Remember that name. Webb slid Ballinger into Dragnet, Adam 12, and finally Emergency, where he turned up barking orders as Battalion Chief Conrad. His most famous moment, though, wasn't even on the show. That's Ballinger you hear announcing the dedication ceremony in the 1974 disaster epic, The Towering Inferno, a movie about a building on fire. You can't make that up. Then he simply walked away. No scandal, no comeback, no farewell tour. He lived quietly into his 90s and died in 2011, having seen nearly every castmate go before him. Sometimes the most remarkable life is the one that just keeps going. But the woman at number 12 didn't get that gift, and she was hiding something genuinely chilling. Number 12, Virginia Gregg. Wilma Jacobs. Here's something creepy. One of the women you saw walking through Rampart Hospital also gave voice to one of the most terrifying characters in film history. Remember Psycho? That dry, accusing voice of Norman Bates' mother drifting down from the top of the stairs? The voice that's haunted audiences for over 60 years? That was Virginia Gregg. She voiced Mrs. Bates for Hitchcock and came back to do it again in the sequels. So the firm, no-nonsense nurse you half remember was, in another life, the sound of pure dread. And if that voice still gives you a little chill, trust me, you're remembering it exactly right. And that's just the headline. Virginia Gregg was one of the most prolific voices in American media. Radio, Dragnet, Gunsmoke, hundreds of credits. If you owned a TV or a radio between 1950 and 1980, she was in your house constantly. You just didn't know her name. The cruel irony? A lifelong smoker, she lost that priceless voice and her life to cancer in 1986. The instrument that made her unforgettable was the very thing that silenced her. Now, she wasn't the only one at Station 51 with a secret double life, because the friendly officer at number 11 once played a literal, blood-draining alien monster. Number 11, Vince Howard. Officer Vince Howard, the cop who calmly rolled up to back up Gage and DeSoto. 8 years before Emergency, he tried to murder the crew of the Starship Enterprise. That's not a joke. In 1966, Vince Howard appeared in one of the most famous episodes of the original Star Trek, The Man Trap, tangled up with the show's shape-shifting, salt-draining creature.
Negative, Battalion 8.
What is that? Chet, that's not even touched. I thought you said you already had lunch.
Well, I put the...
well.
So the steadiest officer at Station 51 has a genuine claim to Star Trek monster lore. Off-screen, the truth was almost funnier. He was the picture of stability. Born Vince House in St. Louis, he was a working actor for decades, a co-star on Mr. Novak, and, between gigs, he quietly ran a real estate business. The man who once menaced Captain Kirk spent his off days closing on bungalows. Vince Howard died in 2002 of leukemia, just 3 days shy of his 73rd birthday. A monster, a cop, a realtor, and a really good sport about all three. But here's where this countdown takes its happiest turn, because a lot of people are convinced the man at number 10 is dead. He is sitting at home right now, very much alive. Number 10, Ron Pinkard, Dr. Mike Morton. Type his name into a search bar and you'll hit something unsettling. Pages arguing over whether he's alive or dead. Recycled obituaries. Rest in peace comments. So let's settle it once and for all. Ron Pinkard is alive and well. You remember Dr. Mike Morton, the Rampart doctor who was always a little impatient, a little proud, and completely convincing.
It's how fear and anxiety in your work can lead to ulcers.
Excuse me, Doc. Soup's on, Cap.
Hey, want to stay for lunch?
Thank you, now.
And at a time when leading roles for black actors were shamefully rare, Pinkard's steady, dignified physician quietly mattered to millions watching at home. Here's a detail the show never told you. He wasn't just playing a man who saved lives. Before Hollywood, Ron Pinkard served in the Navy as a hospital corpsman and rose to commander in the Naval Reserve. The bedside competence wasn't acting, it was muscle memory. He took it so seriously that he later worked as a technical advisor on military films and even earned an on-screen credit under his real Navy rank in The Hunt for Red October. Born in 1941, he's now in his mid-80s, long retired to his hometown of Denver, where he even spent years on the city's film commission. So the next time a video tells you he's gone, you'll know better. He's not the last survivor we'll meet tonight either. But first, the biggest female star the series ever had, and a love life so tangled it should have had its own show. Number 9, Julie London. Nurse Dixie McCall. Win a bar bet with this. Of the entire enormous cast of Emergency, exactly one person appears in all 129 episodes. Not Gage, not DeSoto, her.
And who did all those proper medical procedures?
You did.
Julie London, and she was a superstar before she ever touched a nurse's chart. In 1955, her smoky, aching recording of Cry Me a River made her a national sensation, a torch song that still turns up in films and playlists 70 years later. She was on magazine covers. She was selling out clubs. By the time she stepped onto the Rampart set, she was arguably the most famous person in the building. She didn't walk through that ER so much as own it, because she'd already conquered a stage most actors only dream about. Now hold on, because here's where it gets strange. In 1947, Julie married an ambitious young man named Jack Webb. They divorced in 1954. She then married a jazz musician named Bobby Troup. Remember him, he's coming. And what happened next is almost too wild to believe. Years later, Jack Webb created Emergency and cast both his ex-wife and her new husband as the romantic leads at Rampart. The ex-husband producing his ex-wife and her new spouse week after week for 6 seasons. Imagine the read-through. Imagine the rap parties. By every account, the grown-ups pulled it off with total grace. There was real, lasting respect between all three. But the ending isn't graceful. A lifelong heavy smoker, Julie suffered a stroke in 1995, and the glamorous golden voice that had defined her slowly slipped away. She spent her final years out of the spotlight and died in October 2000 at 74. Hollywood had nearly forgotten her by then, but the fans at home never did, and they never have. And that tangled triangle? It's only half solved. We'll close it at number 3. First, the son of a Hollywood icon and the secret that tore his family apart. Number 8, Gary Crosby, Tom Wheeler. Imagine spending your whole life trying to escape the shadow of one of the most famous men in America. That was Gary Crosby's entire existence, because his father was Bing Crosby, one of the most adored entertainers who ever lived. On Emergency, he turned up as the easygoing Tom Wheeler, and most viewers had no idea they were watching Hollywood royalty. He had the name, the face, the talent, and none of it was ever enough, because the comparison never stopped. Bing's boy. Then, in 1983, he did something nobody expected. He wrote a memoir describing a harsh, often cruel childhood behind his father's wholesome public image. It detonated, and it split the Crosby family down the middle, some siblings backing him, others furious. Whatever the whole truth was, the weight of it followed Gary for the rest of his life, and he fought a long public battle with alcohol along the way. He died in 1995 of lung cancer at just 62, a talented man who spent 6 decades being introduced as somebody else's son. If you're still with me, the 3 biggest reveals are all ahead, including a sci-fi legend hiding in plain sight, and that dead or alive mystery I keep promising. Speaking of hiding in plain sight, the man at number 7 was, for an entire generation, the literal face of the law. Number 7, William Boyett, Battalion Chief McCormick. Here's a quick test. You absolutely know William Boyett's face. You've seen it 100 times. You almost certainly can't tell me his name. For a whole generation, he was television's idea of authority. On Emergency, he commanded fire scenes as the booming Battalion Chief McCormick. But fans knew him better from another Jack Webb show, Adam 12, where he played Sergeant Mac McDonald, the steady voice on the police radio guiding 2 young officers through the city. Yes, Webb again. Keep counting. A World War II Navy veteran, Boyette worked relentlessly for nearly half a century and even popped into 90s favorites like The Rocketeer and Newsies. He was the ultimate that guy, the actor whose arrival on screen silently told you, okay, the adults are here now. He died in 2004 at 77. Never a household name, but woven into 1,000 household memories. Not bad for a man most people couldn't name. Quick gut check for the longtime fans. How many of these did you already know? Be honest in the comments, because the next one genuinely surprised me. The stern fire captain at number 6 didn't just appear in science fiction, he helped invent it. Number 6, Kenneth Tobey, Captain Gordon Trigg. Long before Kenneth Tobey ever walked into Station 51, he had already helped shape modern science fiction. Rewind to 1951. A film called The Thing from Another World hits theaters and basically writes the rule book for every alien invasion movie that follows. An isolated crew, something monstrous outside, dread dripping from every frame. Directors from John Carpenter on down have called it foundational, and the square-jawed leading man at the center of it, Kenneth Tobey. 2 years later, he was squaring off against a giant prehistoric beast in The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, another cornerstone of monster cinema. And then, decades later, that same man quietly turned up at Station 51 in a guest spot as a fire captain. No ego, no don't you know who I am, just a working actor who'd already made history and didn't need to remind anyone. That's the whole magic of him. He died in 2002 at 85. The monsters he fought are immortal now, and so, in a way, is he. That's 3 secret legends solved. A horror voice, a Star Trek creature, and a sci-fi pioneer. But our next man might be the most loved face of Station 51 itself. Number 5, Tim Donnelly. Fireman Chet Kelly. Ask a die-hard emergency fan to name their favorite, and a shocking number will skip the stars entirely and say the prankster, Chet Kelly. And if Chet was your favorite, you're definitely not alone.
That's good, because I happen to save some for you in the oven and it's nice and warm.
What is this that we're having?
A meal fit for a king.
10-4 into.
Tim Donnelly played him in a staggering 122 of the show's 129 episodes. The wind-up artist, the schemer, the guy whose endless feud with Gage gave the firehouse its pulse between rescues. And by every account, off-camera, he was exactly that guy. Warm, hilarious, a relentless on-set prankster the crew adored. Here's the detail I love most. When he finished acting in the mid-1980s, Donnelly didn't chase fame. He picked up a paintbrush and spent nearly 20 years as a set painter, literally building the worlds other actors got to perform in, before retiring to Santa Fe. He stayed close to the fans and was genuinely thrilled to attend the show's 50th anniversary celebration. He never made it. Tim Donnelly died in 2021 at 77 from complications after surgery, just before that reunion. It's exactly the kind of cruel timing Chet himself would have turned into a joke if it weren't so heartbreaking. The fan tributes poured in instantly because Chet always felt less like a character and more like family, which brings us to the man the internet keeps trying to bury and getting it wrong. Number 4, Marco Lopez. Firefighter Marco Lopez. Here's the question that's haunted emergency forums for years. Did Marco Lopez actually die? You'll find videos that confidently say yes, with dates and tragic details attached. Here's the uncomfortable truth. They're guessing. But the bigger mystery came first. On the show, the character's name was Marco Lopez, because that was the actor's real name, just like castmate Mike Stoker. And for 50 years, that one choice convinced fans he must have been an actual Los Angeles County firefighter moonlighting as an actor. He wasn't. Marco Lopez was a full-time working actor, and a fascinating one. He was Jack Webb's trusted stand-in and utility man. Webb again, keep counting, and he turned up across Dragnet, Adam 12, and the disaster blockbuster The Poseidon Adventure. And this one's incredible. One of his very first Hollywood jobs was standing in for Elvis Presley on the 1956 film Love Me Tender. Before he ever pulled on a firefighter's coat, his career had literally brushed up against the king of rock and roll. So back to the question everyone's really here for. Born in 1935, Marco Lopez slowly stepped out of public life. Fewer roles, fewer convention appearances, then silence. And here's the thing, when an actor goes quiet, the internet abhors a vacuum. Channels need a death date for the thumbnail, so some of them simply invent one. A year, a cause, a tearful sign-off, and other channels copy it, and suddenly a rumor hardens into fact. But chase those claims back to a real obituary or record and you find nothing. There is no reliable, verified report of Marco Lopez's death. So I'm not going to bury a man the evidence won't let me bury. If you have something solid, a real source, the comments are open. And that, for now, is where the trail goes cold. But we made you a promise. You've been waiting to find out who Julie London married. Here he is, number 3, Bobby Troup, Dr. Joe Early. The calm-bearded doctor at Rampart secretly wrote one of the most famous songs in American history. Dr. Joe Early, in real life the jazz man Bobby Troup, is the man who wrote Route 66. Yes, that Route 66, recorded by hundreds of artists from Nat King Cole to the Rolling Stones.
51. 51. This is Rampart Base. You read me? Nothing, huh? No, just cut out. No, but this is radio. Why doesn't he contact us via landline?
The anthem of the open American road. The mild-mannered TV doctor was a bona fide jazz legend, but that isn't even the most surprising thing about Bobby Troup. Remember that strange love triangle from number 9? Here's where it snaps shut. Bobby married Julie London after her divorce from Jack Webb, and then Webb, the ultimate showman, hired all 3 of them for Emergency. The ex-husband, the ex-wife, and the new husband, all on one payroll, somehow making it work. And here's the part that quietly breaks your heart. Bobby Troup died in February 1999 of a heart attack at 80. Julie followed him a year and a half later. 2 halves of Station 51's first family, the songwriter and the singer, gone within months of each other, just as they'd done everything else together. That leaves the 2 men at the very top. Number 2 didn't just act in this show, he helped write it. Number 2, Michael Norrell, Captain Hank Stanley. The captain who ran Station 51 had a secret. While you watched him command the firehouse, he was quietly writing the show you were watching. When the original captain left early in the run, Emergency needed a leader, firm, warm, the dad of the firehouse.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I have just made a big batch of clam chowder.
Michael Norrell stepped in as Captain Hank Stanley for around 110 episodes. If you can picture the captain's office at 51, you're picturing him. But Norrell was a former newspaper journalist and an army captain in real life, and he started slipping his own scripts to the producers between scenes. He was good. After the series, he built an entire second career behind the camera, writing for The Love Boat and Nash Bridges, and even winning a Writers Guild award. The captain became the storyteller. And here's why his name lands the hardest. Of everyone we've met tonight, Michael Norrell's loss is the most recent. He passed away in 2023 at 85. Sit with that for a moment. For decades, Emergency fans had grown used to losing this cast one by one, the way you lose old friends. But Norrell was the last of the principal Station 51 firehouse crew still with us. When he went, the firehouse itself, in a sense, went quiet for good. For a lot of fans, Michael Norrell wasn't just another name in the credits. His passing was the moment they realized Emergency truly belonged to another era now. The captain was the last one to turn off the lights, which leaves exactly one man still standing. And before we meet him, stop and notice something. If you've been with me from number 13, you've probably felt a pattern forming. The announcer, the nurse, her husband, the chief, the prankster, the doctor who's still alive. Trace them back and almost every single thread runs through one man, Jack Webb. He didn't just produce Emergency, he built it out of the people in his own orbit. And the last star standing, he came aboard for the most personal reason of all. Number 1, Robert Fuller, Dr. Kelly Brackett. Robert Fuller almost never became Dr. Kelly Brackett at all. The biggest reveal on this list is a man who turned the role down more than once because he didn't want to be a doctor. He wanted to be a cowboy. Before Emergency, Robert Fuller was a genuine Western star, riding tall as Jess Harper on Laramie and Cooper Smith on Wagon Train, 2 of the most popular shows of their era. He'd come up the hard way too, a stuntman first, then a leading man, a guy who could actually ride and fight on camera. When Jack Webb came calling about a modern medical drama, Fuller turned him down. More than once. He had spurs. He had a horse. He had a career built in the saddle. Why on earth would he trade that for a stethoscope and a clipboard? So how did Webb finally land him? Remember the unusual friendship between Julie London, Bobby Troup, and Jack Webb? That's actually part of the reason Fuller ended up at Station 51 in the first place. Julie and Bobby, the singer and the songwriter, were among Robert Fuller's closest friends in the world, and Webb knew it. He cast Fuller in part because the family was already there. The cowboy signed on for the people he loved. Now sit with the weight of that. Fuller took the role for his two best friends, and he has outlived them both, and very nearly everyone else you've met tonight. The nurse, the doctor who wrote Route 66, the captain, the prankster, gone. He's spoken honestly about that strange, lonely privilege. Being the last one standing means being the one who remembers everybody. Every story tonight has an ending. His is still being written. And here's the answer to the very first question of this video. Robert Fuller is still here. He turned 92 in the summer of 2025, lives a quiet life in Texas, and still shows up at fan conventions to shake hands with the people who grew up at Station 51. The reluctant cowboy doctor became the last man standing from one of television's most beloved families, and he's spending these years exactly the way he chooses to. So there they are. 13 faces, 5 mysteries, and 1 quiet truth. Nearly all of it traces back to Jack Webb and the family he built around himself. Some are gone. A few, Ron Pinkard, likely Marco Lopez, and 92-year-old Robert Fuller, are still very much with us. And if you made it all the way here, you're not a casual viewer. You're the kind of person who actually remembers Station 51. This channel is for you. Now I want to hear you. Which reveal got you? The psycho voice? The hidden songwriter? The cowboy who never wanted the role? And who left the deepest mark on your memory of emergency? Drop it in the comments and subscribe because Station 51 has more secrets left to tell.